There's something that recently popped for me and pinged for me around this DEI conversation, an illuminating perspective. I don't hear anybody talking about it, so I thought we'd dive in together. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on it. But before we do, like, what is that? I woke up with that. What am I, in middle school? And yes, I drove out of my way to hit up a Walgreens because hashtag DEI supporters. Now, in order for us to have this conversation, I think you should know my background. I've been a coach for 15 years, and when I've been coaching people, I'm not one of those coaches that's like, rah, rah, you can do that. The kind of coaching I do is actually to go into somebody's perspective, understand their perspective, and help them change their perspective such that they can then change the actions that they're taking and change their reality. So it's a unique type of coaching. The thing is that I've been doing it for 15 years, so I'm like super skilled at it. And the thing that nobody's talking about is the perspectives that each side of the conversation, of the DEI conversation, like what our actual unique perspectives are inside of this. And this is super important to take a look at. Now, the first one's pretty obvious. If you're watching this, you're probably on the same perspective as I am, which is DEI is great. It makes sure that we have an inclusive group of people making decisions for the collective people who would be participating in any one thing. And this one hits home for me in a way because what I noticed was my Alexa and my grandmother's hearing aids were probably both created in a vacuum where no women were around. And the reason that I say this is because every time I talk to my grandmother with her hearing aids in, she couldn't hear me on the phone. And every time I talk to the Alexa, I have to sound like a deep voiced man in order to get it to listen. So what I have pinpointed and put together is that there were no women speaking with an octave or a voice like mine in the room when the Alexa was being put together or when the hearing aids were being tested. Now, prove me wrong on that, but like that's what I sense happened. And you and I both know that's the reason DEI programs exist, is so that we can have people in the rooms who are making the decisions for the collective. Now, on the other side of the aisle, people who are complaining about DEI programs, their number one complaint is that we would have unqualified people in roles that they don't have the education, the knowledge, the know-how, the credentials to be in those roles. So when I say that again, the perspective of the other side is that we would be putting people with no merit, credentials, knowledge, or know-how into a role, and that person would be heading up that role and in charge of that role without the aforementioned credentials. That is their perspective. They somehow think that people get into positions who have zero qualifications for those positions. And it's fascinating to me because I have never had that perspective. When I look at people, I can tell if you have credentials or not. I can tell if you have knowledge or not. And I sense that all of us can have the credentials and knowledge for almost anything, for almost any position. Somewhere they think that's what we want because consciously, unconsciously, deep down, on the surface, that's how they think. Isn't that what got us here in the first place? We had two people running for office, one who was a convicted felon, impeached with very little credentials, up against somebody who was highly overqualified for the position. And yet, the masses of the people on the other side of the aisle voted for a person who didn't have the credentials, but voted for him based off of a Y chromosome and a light skin color. So what I want to point out is that we all make choices based off of our own perspective, and then we think other people are behaving in the same way because it's our perspective. So case in point, I'm at the Walgreens. So if somebody has a grocery cart, but they don't take it back in the store, I have a perspective like you should definitely be responsible for your grocery cart and take it back in the store. So if you leave your grocery cart out here, I'm gonna be like, how come you didn't take your grocery cart back in? Because that's something I would do. See, so I'm putting my perspective on them. Do you get what I'm saying? On a different note, I did just come out of the Walgreens. I got some chewy things because they didn't have anything that I needed or that I wanted. So if we're all giving up Target to go to Walgreens, we're gonna need to have a little conversation about upping your game. It looks like you're headed for the abyss. Like, you're totally going out of business in there. So what do we do about this? This is our opportunity to look at ourselves and to open up discussions, if you can, with people on the other side of the aisle as well, but to question the internalized misogyny that started this whole thing. So it is the patriarchal systems and the internalized misogyny that we all have that have us think that people with the Y chromosome with light skin just know things and they just get ahead, and we protect them and we allow them to move forward without the credentials, the knowledge, the merit, or the wherewithal. That's what got us here in the first place. That's the thing that nobody's talking about. And our opportunity is to look at where we do that in our personal lives and where we do that with others, and to start checking it for ourselves so that we can change it in the field collectively, so that we can change it for the world. So what are your perspectives on this? Perspectives. Did you count how many times I said perspectives in this video?